Hello and welcome to another video on my channel, Draw with Lee. Today we are going to do a tutorial on how to draw a portrait using charcoal. The materials we're using today are Strathmore 400 series paper here, General's HB and 2B pencils, which I have here nicely sharpened. And we also have a couple erasers. So we have a kneaded eraser as well as a hard eraser in this Factis BM2 container. I've also prepared this paper by rubbing a layer of vine charcoal over it. So we're starting with a base layer material and value. Today's subject will be this meal model above. The photo here provides us with a few prerequisites for being a good source for a dynamic drawing. Specifically, I'm thinking the lighting is interesting, it's dynamic with good contrast and value scale. The portrait is not directly on center of his face, so it's a little bit more interesting than dividing his face directly in two. He's striking a somewhat interesting facial expression. Sometimes more family-esque photos where the subject is smiling can make a drawing look less serious and substantial. Now, let's begin. First, we'll make sure we get an accurate block in. If the proportions are not accurate, then no matter how much shadow and values we use, it will just not capture the model correctly. So we'll start with a general outline to make sure he fits correctly within the paper. As we draw, we'll add measurement lines and begin to refine the shapes that define his face. We want to make sure that the initial outlines are accurate. An interesting rule of thumb is that usually the head is split between the center of the eye, between the top of his head and the chin. Obviously he's got a bunch of hair here, but that gives us a general guidance in terms of how much space should exist between the top of his head to his eyes and his eyes to his chin, giving us a rough idea of how tall this drawing should be. Obviously he's got some extra poofy hair here, so the rule is generalized and different people have different proportions, but that's a good starting point. When measuring, I like to use a technique called triangulation. That means trying to get different locations of a feature, say like at the edge of the eyes or the edge of the nose or mouth, and drawing lines between those different elements, and then making sure that those lines are correct in angle in relation to each other, at which point, if you can get 3 points together that look correct relative to one another, and you do that for the entire drawing, then chances are the proportions will be accurate or become accurate as you measure. thing you notice is that as we continue measuring and refining where things go, I'll start gradually getting a little darker with the lines as I feel more accurate about where things are. Obviously, you don't want to go too dark too quickly because it can damage the paper if you make a large mistake, but you'll see as we continue drawing in the different features, the lines will become more and more distinct and accurate. And we're almost done with the block end. Once we feel pretty confident about where everything is, we can start with some of the shading of the values. Okay, I'm feeling pretty good about the drawing at this point, so we will start adding in some values. I want to first create a base layer of shadow in the darker regions of the drawing, and then from there create more gradations of value over time. Okay, the base layer of shadow now exists. You can tell that it's mostly the same value scale with a couple of drawing tweaks that have been made. You see a little bit of added darkness to try and get the drawing accurate. You see some amount of extra emphasis in certain shadow areas just to make some corrections on the drawing, but overall the values are pretty consistent. Slightly darker in the hair, slightly darker in the shirt, around some of the main features, but we haven't yet started going full value scale at this point. The foundation is there, you can make any corrections you want to the drawing. Once you're confident and happy with portions and base value of the shadows, now we can start pushing and pulling, creating a wider value scale, going from light to dark to make this drawing really pop. because of the high contrast between the hair, the background, and his face, I'm going to use a piece of compressed charcoal to make the shadows darker and push kind of the values more quickly than if I were to just try to do this using pencils. This certainly pushed the values darker, but I lost a lot of the finesse, lost a lot of the details. So we're going to go back in with the charcoal pencil to kind of push and pull the shadow against the highlights now that we have a good base layer of shade that more aligns with the source photo that we have here. We're at the point of this drawing where we're refining the details of the subject, and you'll see me focus a lot more time around the focal point of this image, which is really the face. It's okay for some of the external areas, background, the shirt to be a bit less detailed because that's not where you want to draw the eye. So as you continue to refine a drawing like this, you want to make sure the focal point is clear, the values have a wide variety to them, so that that's where people will focus on when looking at this drawing. Okay, and there you have it. I've taken this demo as far as I think we need to showcase the details in the face, the subject matter, bring forward and back the different values to create a compelling portrait. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching, and I hope we see you in the next one. Thanks, take care.